Morning. So today I'm going to talk about dreaming and waking. Waking and dreaming. Zen non-dualism is based on the fact that everything's part of one flow and everything's separate. So each wave is its own wave, and yet it's a manifestation of the entire ocean. Two and one. Two and one. So reality is undifferentiated consciousness, which takes all these different forms, all these different wave-like forms. Ruzan is a wave, and Tim is a wave, and yet we are both manifestations of the entire ocean of consciousness, the entire ocean of being. We're different waves, and yet we're completely the same because we're manifestations of that undivided consciousness. So if reality is non-dual, then the separation between waking and dreaming is less distinct than we commonly perceive. Our conventional view of dreams is quite dualistic, and that's fine because there is Tim and there is Ruzan and Lisa there. But there's another view too. First, I'm going to talk about the more standard view a little bit. In either case, the conventional view says that dreams are less real than waking life, that they're a product of the unconscious, that they're a product of random neural firings if you don't believe in the unconscious, that they're a product of wish fulfillment if you're a psychologist. I've known some psychologists before. So the firm line that we draw between the real waking world right now and the dream world is not quite that fine, not quite that precise. Even though sometimes in a dream, sights, sounds, feelings, emotions are just as vivid and intense as when we wake up. And then we wake up and we think, oh, that was just a dream. Oh, that was just a dream. I spent the first 27 years of my life in California, but I've been gone for years and years and years. And it was just night before last, I had a dream and I was in my home in California and we were swimming out in the backyard, which we did in California. And then I woke up. Well, it was just a dream, right? Just a dream. So Freud's interpretation is that dreams are manifestations of repressed desires. And that have symbolic representation primarily. Carl Jung, took it a step farther and he said, well, yes, but there's also some really cool stuff in there. And that's what he called the collective unconscious. And the collective unconscious has archetypal figures whom we can contact and support us. And then there's the shamanic interpretation. As some of you know, oh, by the way, I'm supposed to introduce myself. I'm Tim Burkett, one of the teachers here, and I've been here since before. Quite a few of you were born. Anyway, during my years, I did quite a bit of work with two shamans, one Michael Harner and the other Elmer Running, Lakota shaman. And their belief is that we can enter in dreamlike states through altering unconsciousness and find power animals or friends who then will support us. And so more than 30 years ago, maybe it was more like 40, I used to go to Rosebud Reservation, and I went there. I always went to see Elmer, Elmer Running, my teacher, and I went up on the hill for 4 days and 4 nights with no food, no water, no one to talk to, and just meditated and prayed. And my friend Paul, who's deceased, did it on one of the other hills. And then on the way down, when Elmer picked me up, he said, did you have one of them visions? Did you have one of them dreams? I said, oh yes. Do you want to hear about it? He said, no, a lot of people have them dreams, visions. Not very many people live them. A lot of people have them dreams, visions. Not very many people live them. Oh, darn. That was an eagle. That was a dream eagle who came and rested with me and supported me. I knew it was a dream eagle, but it supported me. Supported me for years. And I had a Zen teacher in San Francisco, my secondary Zen teacher, a guy named To Lun from China. And he later became famous as Xuan Hua. He founded the city of 10,000 Buddhas in Northern California. But nobody knew him then, and I would go over to his place for talks, evening talks, just a very few of us there. And he would talk about, or he did talk once, about his meditation in caves in China and keeping his meals to a limit, limiting his food intake, being in the cave, doing zazen, until a wolf appeared. He knew, a dream wolf, he said. And the dream wolf said to him, or indicated to him, he should come to the United States. So he came to the United States. And he seemed to be a little bit disappointed when I met him about having come to the United States, because there he was, isolated. He couldn't speak Cantonese, only Mandarin, and so he thought maybe his wolf had let him down. A few years after I left, he became really famous as the founder of the city of 10,000 Buddhas in California. You can Google it. So all of these ones that I've talked about assume, all of these attitudes toward dreams assume a separate dreaming subject and a separate dream world, which is true, but also from a non-dualistic truth that converses, a non-dualistic point of view that converse is also true. There's one undifferentiated flow. That's all of life. That's all of life. That's the wave which is simply a manifestation of the entire ocean. Isn't that wonderful that we're a manifestation of the entire ocean of being, just as we are? We think we should be a different kind of wave. Just as you are, you already is. Yeah, be a different kind of wave, I don't care. So Chuang Tzu, the Taoist sage Chuang Tzu, talked a lot about freedom from conventional distinctions, the relativity of all life, and the limitations of language and conceptual thought. And here's a famous excerpt from Chuang Tzu, which I have talked about before, but not in a while. It's about dreams, and it's very common for those of us who are kind of literate in Zen and Taoism. Once upon a time, I, Chuang Tzu, dreamt I was a butterfly, fluttering hither and thither. I was happy as a butterfly, unaware that I was Chuang Tzu. Soon I awoke, and there I was, myself again. Now, I do not know whether I was then a man, dreaming I was a butterfly, or I am now a butterfly, dreaming I am a man. Between a man and a butterfly, there is necessarily a distinction. The transition is called the transformation of things. The The transition is called the transformation of things. So he, in his own playful way, is challenging the validity of the subject-object dichotomy. Who is the dreamer? If Chuang Tzu dreams of being a butterfly, is there a Chuang Tzu separate from the butterfly? Or is the Chuang Tzu consciousness temporarily manifesting as the butterfly? Or is the butterfly consciousness temporarily manifesting as Chuang Tzu? The I that dreams and the I that wakes are both constructs. They're both constructs. And there's no absolute or no absolute point of view or fixed reality from which to judge other states. Each state, man, butterfly, woman, moth, he, she, they, feels equally real within its own experience. We know this. We know this. Unfortunately, we think this is the real one, and that's why we get in fights. That's why we get in arguments and get in fights. But the waves don't want to fight with each other. If they realize they're the whole ocean, why would they? Why would they? The transformation of things points out not a change in things, but a transformation of perspective or being. It's not that the person becomes a butterfly, but that the separation between them dissolves. It just dissolves. So the implications are, one implication is that if waking life is just another dream from a different perspective, then suffering, attachments, and anxieties begin to lose their grip. Begin to lose their grip. Also, it shows the limitations of hierarchy. One state's not inherently superior, the waking state, the dream state. Waking life is simply more persistent, more consensual. A dream is more persistent and more consensual. Well, culture to culture, the consensus is somewhat different, somewhat varied. So it challenges us. It challenges us. In my book, Nothing Holy About It, my first book, which is still in print, I talk, the theme of the book is the interchange with Bodhidharma and the Emperor Wu. And I'm not going to do the whole thing today, but the Emperor Wu asked Bodhidharma, what's the first principle of your holy teaching? And Bodhidharma says, a vast spaciousness with nothing holy about it. Because as soon as we hierarchically think there's the holy, and then there's us, or we're holy, and then there's those guys, we create bifurcation, we create stress, we create anxiety. And it's all self-creation. It's all self-creation. And that's applicable to dreams and reality, obviously. And so he's challenging, Bodhidharma's challenging the emperor. I guess I'm challenging you guys, but don't take it too seriously. Because we're all waves on the ocean already. But I'm challenging you guys to let go of the impulse to seek something special, something sacred, or something more real, or something more deep outside of what is right here. right here. So dreams aren't some mystical realm separate from our everyday existence, nor are they merely psychological. The mind is just doing what the mind does, whether awake or asleep. It generates images and concepts. And you can sit for 1,000 years, your mind is still going to generate images and concepts. That's what the mind does. So there's no difference between dreaming and having a waking conversation. A dreaming conversation, a waking conversation, both are expressions of the same underlying vast ocean of being, vast ocean of consciousness. So the holy or sacred isn't in the content of the experience, but in just the awareness before we divide our experience up. Better or worse, up, down, waking, dream, before that, prior to that. So then there's less identification with the ephemeral character called Tim. I play when I'm awakened, when I'm living when I'm awake. Less identification, less identification. This is referred to in Indian Buddhism as the play of lila, the play of consciousness. Consciousness playing. The ocean plays as it makes different waves, different configurations of waves. It's the play of the ocean. It's the play of the universe. So speaking of play, the Zen master Basho, who lived, he lived maybe 2,100 years after Chuang Tzu in Japan. And he was familiar with Chuang Tzu. And he was familiar with that particular one. Most Zen people were then. And so he wrote he's the founder of haiku. He wrote his friend Doi, and he said, "You're the butterfly and I am the dreaming heart of Zhuangzi. I don't know if I'm Basho, who dreamed that I was a butterfly named Doi, or that winged Mr. Doi is dreaming me, or that winged Mr. Doi dreaming me is Basho." Reminds me of my teacher story I've told so many times about my teacher when he wanted me to take him to this wealthy part of California to meet this woman. Let's say her name was Mrs. Jones, and he had an address, and I took him over there, and he had me wait in the car while he walked way up to Mrs. Jones's mansion. And then he came back and he said, "Wrong Mrs. Jones. She think I there to wash her windows." And he laughed. And then for 6 months afterwards, he kept bringing up, "I don't have my squeegee. I don't have my squeegee." So we kind of, through our Zazen practice, we can get pretty fluid about these selves that we carry around. And we don't have to get all wigged out about any of them, right? If everything is an expression of the same consciousness, then separation between individuals in the world is much less important. There's this huge bifurcation in our country right now. It's very sad, very sad. Nevertheless, it's the same ocean. The waves in the same ocean. So, through our settling our mind down, we can feel this being joined to all life just as we are. Whether we're Zen masters or window washers, or whether we move back and forth between the two. So the sleeping dream and the waking dream are both real in their own context. Then does nothing matter? Well, yes, but things matter differently. The intensity of emotions and experience is real within the present context of either the dreaming state or the waking state, but our clinging power is lessened because we experience whatever, whether it's in a dream or when awake, as a playground of consciousness. We're playing in consciousness. Lila, in Sanskrit. Consciousness playing. And you can tell that Chuang Tzu was playing here. You can tell that Basha was playing here, can't you? You can tell that Suzuki Roshi, why did he keep bringing that squeegee up 6 months later every time he saw me? I don't have my squeegee, where's my squeegee? Right? So it says, isn't about escaping reality, but about deeply engaging with whatever is, without getting caught by our ideas about who we are, or who we should be, or who they are, or who they should be. Not ignoring the divisions, but not getting fixated on them so we can find the commonality, since we're all manifestations of that ocean. Every undocumented immigrant is part of that big reality. Every one of those cabinet members of you-know-who is part of that big reality. Wow, pretty wonderful, isn't it? Pretty wonderful. So the question for us is how we can function in the world if we think it has the same fluidity and unpredictability as a dream. We can do that more effectively, with less anxiety, with more spontaneity, because we're not fixed on something, and more love, but not love that we cultivate, love that just comes out. It just comes out. When we're not caught by a division, it just comes out. So I read about a guy from Silicon Valley recently, kind of a mucky-muck, who went down to Ensenada, California, Ensenada and Baja California, below Tijuana, where I used to go with my family when I was young. And I went deep sea fishing with my father. So this Silicon Valley tycoon went deep sea fishing with a fisherman early in the morning. And then I read that he was horrified to find the fisherman lying beside his boat later in the day, smoking a pipe, actually for the whole day. And he said, "Why aren't you fishing?" And the fellow said, I guess this was in English, I don't know, "Because I've caught enough fish for the day." And this mucky-muck said, "Why don't you catch some more?" And the local person said, "What would I do with them?" And he said, "Oh, you'd earn more money. Then you could have a motor fixed to your boat and let go and go into deeper waters and catch more fish and have more clients like me. And that would bring you lots of money. You could buy nylon nets and you'd have more fish, more money. You'd have enough to buy maybe 2 boats. Capitalism, right? Enough to buy 2 boats, even a fleet of boats. Then you could be rich like me." And the fisherman said, what would I do then? and the Silicon Valley guy said, then you could sit back and enjoy life. And the fisherman said, what do you think I'm doing now? So this is about just being present wherever we are, observing whatever thoughts and emotions come up without trying to get something, because you've already got it. Without too much identification, noticing the fluidity of our experience, of our consciousness, and questioning our key assumptions about what we consider real and how our perceptions are constructed. If we let go of those contracts just a little bit, we have a deeper sense of wonder, a deeper sense of openness, a deeper sense of contentment. So it's not about proving whether we are a human or a butterfly, but about dissolving the question. Dissolving the question. We're not merely characters in a dream, we're the very consciousness in which the dream unfolds. So, and that means just a more natural feeling of friendship and intimacy and love, just naturally. So the Spanish poet Octavio Paz was familiar with Chuang Tzu, as lots of literate people are, and he wrote a poem about Chuang Tzu. He wrote this in Spanish, and I've read it in Spanish too, but my Spanish is not that good. A butterfly flew between the cars. Marie Jose said, it must be Chuang Tzu on a tour of New York. But the butterfly didn't know it was a butterfly, dreaming it was Chuang Tzu, or Chuang Tzu dreaming he was a butterfly. The butterfly never wondered, it flew. Octavio Paz. His wife was named Marie Jose, and they spent time in New York. So I'm going to end with a dream of my own, which is, I've talked about in this book, and I've talked about here. Everything in this book I talked about here. Probably not for a long time, but this is more of, yeah, well anyway. So when I was practicing, I'm from California, I did my early practice in California with my teacher Shunryu Suzuki. I was having a really hard time sitting, because that's basically all we did. Sit. Oh, we did our raking and our window washing. We didn't have squeegees though. Especially in the retreats and the sesshin, I had a hard time because I did involuntary shaking from my base of my spine, and I would shake involuntarily, especially after I'd been sitting for a while, because I'm probably so cramped. I didn't know about yoga or anything, so I would shake, and it was very frustrating, and I almost gave up. I remember going to different people and asking them. Suzuki told me I should ask Katagiri for some exercises, and I did them, and I went to a bunch of it never helped. So I almost gave up, but I didn't want to give up. I'd already dropped out of college, and I was centering my whole life on this, so I wasn't about to give up, but I was on the verge of giving up, and I had a dream. And there were 2 or 3 really tall guys who, when we sit in sesshin, they would sit just ramrod straight. And I don't know what they do if their nose itched, but they didn't seem to have itchy noses. You know, isn't it frustrating to sit with someone who doesn't seem to have an itchy nose? If you've done long Zen sitting, you know what I'm talking about. So they would sit ramrod straight, and I hated I hated sitting near them. I used to sit on the other side away from them. But there they were, and there I was, shaking, shaking. And so in my dream, I was in, I don't know where I was. Maybe I was in Zendo, I don't know. I don't know where it was, it didn't matter. But there were two very tall guys whose heads went up to the ceiling, and they were standing very straight, and they had legs that were like pillars. And I was looking up at them, and I was feeling intimidated. And then my teacher, Suzuki, came in. My teacher, Suzuki, was 4'11". He came in and opened the door and started turning somersaults around their legs in my dream. And then he beckoned me to come in and turn somersaults with him. And he pointed up to them, indicating, I'm not saying anything. They won't even notice. So then I woke up. And after I woke up, I went back to Zen Center with a different attitude. That's one of the dreams I've talked about before. So I think that's enough. I wonder what time it is. What time is it?
10:34.
Oh, 10:34. Okay. So questions, comments from anybody? Online or in the room? I think I'll ask people online first if they'd like to say anything, because I see there's a good group of people, most of whom are hiding their faces, but they're allowed to do that, and they're online. Anybody online want to say anything?
Hi, Tim. It's Ellen. I've had dreams.
Ellen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I've had dreams that reconcile me with difficulties I've had with people, and I'll dream about them. And in the dream, the difficulty will be resolved. And then when I wake up, the problem is gone. So,
Good.
yeah. And when people pass away too, and pets too, I'll have dreams about them, they'll come to me. It's sort of like saying, it's okay, we're still here.
Oh, that's cool. Yes, good. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else online? Okay, online or in the room? Ted.
Yeah. So people ask me sometimes about getting sleepy when they're doing
About what?
About getting sleepy.
Yeah.
When they're doing Zazen.
Yeah.
You probably get that question.
Yeah.
And one thing about getting sleepy when you do Zazen is it can be kind of an opportunity, because if you kind of let the sleepiness in but maintain your wakefulness at the same time, you can kind of watch your mind make these dream-like connections.
That's right.
And so your waking mind is seeing your sleeping mind, basically. And that's a nice way to kind of break down that barrier between the dream life and the
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Other people, I think there was another hand over around Ted, was there? Oh, okay. Oh, this side, yeah.
So sometimes I find that I kind of daydream, like
You kind of what?
daydream,
Uh-huh.
not sleeping,
Yeah.
but I'll still have like a dream-like
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's also part of that dream.
That's right. Are you able just to go with that?
Yeah, and I get a lot of my art ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of spring into my head.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yes.
Tim, did you ever figure out why you were shaking so much when you were sitting?
No. No. I went everywhere to ask you. I went to the yoga center in San Francisco, and the guy told me to You tell me to do, I think quit having sex. I didn't want to quit having, maybe if I quit having sex, they would have gone away, but I wasn't about to do that. Oh, no, they just went away. Yeah. Yeah.
So Tim, in your books, in one of them anyway, you talk a lot about like the movies we have in our head,
Yes.
the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I was actually just recently thinking about, like, I like to read both fiction and nonfiction. And sometimes it's historical, but both can be historical. One is, but strictly from the fiction perspective, and one might be like a biography or something. And it seems to me like, I don't know, the recent thing I thought of was like, well, there's truth and non-truth in both. And I'm just wondering how that kind of relates to this waking and dreaming. It seems...
Yes, well, you just related it. You just related the two, didn't you? That the boundary between waking and dreaming, the boundary between fiction and nonfiction is permeable. And there's a wonderful permeability to it. We need the boundary, but it's permeable. And permeable means that there's fluid passing through the boundaries. The boundary isn't rigid. So fiction, oh, I learned something about history. Nonfiction, oh, this is fabulous. It couldn't really happen. Oh, you know, it's permeable, permeable. Same for dreams and waking state. Good, good. Thank you for the analogy, Tanya. You did answer the question, by the way. Yes.
Tim, can you comment at all on like really scary dreams? When I was a kid, I was one of those kids that had a recurring dream for probably like 5 years, and the whole neighborhood, like a giant earthquake would happen and everything was going down, and I could see it all, and it was just terrifying.
Yes, well, if we're having a repetitive, really scary dream, usually something is going on in our lives. And if we just gently inquire, playfully inquire, the dream is telling us something about that we're not feeling safe. And is there an adjustment we can make in our consciousness, in our lives, in our primary relationships? The dream is giving us a message, a persistent message, and it wants us to pay attention. And did you pay attention in your waking life?
I think I was too young to know what to do with it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it happened when you were really young.
When I was like 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, when you were tiny. Oh.
And, yeah, and it just kept coming back.
Yeah,
but I never really did process.
Well, if
fully.
your parents,
Luckily, it doesn't go
if
back.
you had a wise parent or grandparent, they could have helped you.
Yeah. I don't even remember if I told anyone.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I'm a first timer here.
Okay.
So I was just wondering, there's a strong emphasis in society on getting a certain amount of sleep.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Do we need that much sleep? Do we,
Well, at this stage in my life, we need all the sleep we can get. I got along for years when I was young on very little sleep. But now I enjoy and appreciate sleep more and more, and sleep demands me that my psyche demands that I enjoy and appreciate it. So I don't fight with it. But maybe that doesn't relate to your question.
Well, like I'm just thinking of, so the teacher I've been practicing with for a long time.
A Zen teacher?
Zen teacher. She talks about her teacher having her for a period of time getting up, I think it was either every hour or every couple of hours through the night for an extended period of time, just to see that that was not such a thing as
yes, that's a good practice. I've never done it, but that's a good practice.
No, I've never done it either, but I mean, except if it's happened without my, I kind of go with it when I don't, when I don't sleep. I'm like, great, I have more time for.
Yeah, well, you need to take care of yourself and take care of your health. That's primary. So you can really live a rich life. On the other hand, whether it's sitting in a long retreat or not, or only getting 5 hours of sleep a night and sitting every morning, or sitting like Tolan did in a cave, or going on the hill like I did in Lakota territory for 24 hours for 4 days and 4 nights. If we're going to be serious about our practice, we need something that unsettles our habitual frame. And I'm sorry to say that, but you need something that unsettles your habitual framework so you can let go of it. But not at the expense of your health. So you have to find the middle way. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and I guess just paying attention to how it is when I do what I do. But like you're saying, don't get stuck on the routines, but I mean, have routines that support practice, but not at the expense of
Yes.
watch what's happening. And
That's right.
Like,
And also
sense.
allow yourself to go into routines you're not familiar with.
Yeah, like this morning and last night.
Yeah.
Tornado and,
You know, that's why the shock of all of a sudden, I have to sit for a week. I mean, I've only sat at my first week retreat. I've only sat for a half hour a day, and all of a sudden I'm going to sit for a week. That's a shock. But then once I get it under my belt, I shouldn't do that anymore because I need, you know, then I get habituated to that. I know all the moves. I can do this. I can do that. I can just sit still. Nobody knows that I'm thinking about my girlfriend or whatever. Then I need to be shocked some other way so that we can let go of this stuff and just feel the permeability of everything, of all life, and the loving interconnectedness that goes with that permeability. Yes.
I find dreams very important in my life.
What, dreams have been?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
About the last 50 years.
Uh-huh.
Every month or two, I'll have a dream that's the most important thing that happened that day.
Uh-huh.
And this started the year I moved from Philadelphia to Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
There was a Jung Society there. There was also a Shambhala Buddhist group there. And that encouraged the Jung Association to help me understand my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, for the last 50 years, I've had dreams occasionally about Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be common. Now they're, I don't remember one in the last few years, but there was a very interesting thing that helped me recover, because I have been taking care of people on the hospital ship in Vietnam and making sure that they didn't die.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it was an obligation. And I had a dream where I was hiking in the mountains like I like to do, and I was going down a narrow trail, and there was a cliff up above and a drop off below, and I saw a person falling off the cliff, and I was tempted to grab it to save him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all the content of the dream. I was scared about the possibility, the choice I had to make.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I don't know how quickly I realized it, but I realized that first of all, I have to take care of myself. I can't sacrifice my life to try to. I mean, he was falling from so high that he would have died anyways. He would hit me, and perhaps we would both go to the boat. So, taking care of myself.
Good.
What became part of my foundation on how to help other people.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Raymond.
Just a comment to that question. In Catholic monastic life, there's something they call the liturgy of the hours. Where part of that practice throughout the day they're praying, but also they get up like at midnight, at 3 in the morning, and 5 in the morning, and it's usually something like an 8-minute prayer. So there are other practices like that. I was reading recently about the 6 realms of the field, you know, like the hungry ghost.
Yes, yes.
And there's a transmigration from one realm to the other psychologically.
Yes.
Can you comment, is there any similarity to that to dreaming?
No. Well, that's interesting. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the 6 realms. You know, I don't want to have to explain the 6 realms to half the people here, but I guess I will. As Raymond just said, there's 6, the way we think about it, psychological realms of existence that human beings move through. And if we get caught in any of those realms, it's like we are, we develop a fixation on them, and we forget the fluidity of all life. But we actually all move through all 6 continually. And the 6 are starting at the hell realm. I'm starting at the bottom. The hell realm, the hungry ghost realm. I want a little bit more of Randy's composure. How did he get it? I'm going to sit longer. I get more of his composure. The hungry ghost realm, the animal realm. I want to look in that refrigerator. You know, I'm here almost every morning, and sometimes I look in the refrigerator to see if there's something sweet there. And I think, could I eat that sweet thing once I find it? That's the animal realm, right? And sometimes I do, even though I shouldn't. The animal realm. The human realm, where, you know, we're just in the human realm. The fighting spirit realm, where we compete with others to get what we want. And then the God realm, where we've got it all. But you know what happens when we're in the God realm? If we think we've got it all, we go right to hell, right to the hell realm. So these realms are fluid. We all experience them. Even so-called Zen masters experience them, but they become more fluid, and we don't get caught in anything. Well, we might get caught a little bit in them for a while, but once I've had my cookie, I'm out of the animal. Although I need 2 or 3 or 4. But you know, we can take these realms lightly. We can take them playfully and not get all wigged out. Did I answer your question? I don't remember what your question was.
How is that, is there a similarity or anything between that and dreams?
Oh yes, well, these are all dreams. Each of these realms, when we get fixated on it, it is a dream. If we don't get fixated on it, it's part of the fluidity of life, part of the ocean of life. The ocean takes many different forms. It takes an animal form, it takes a hungry ghost form, it takes a person form, and we can just see that, appreciate that, take care of that realm, but realize that it's part of something bigger in a playful kind of way.
Taylor? Online. Can you hear me?
Huh?
Deborah? It's online.
Oh, online.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your thinking. And I have a question about the ability of the maker of dreams. So I feel like movies have a lot to do with our collective dreams. And I've noticed recently, especially not watching television or participating very much in social media, that when I enter into that realm again, it seems to be increasingly violent and hellish, frankly.
Increasingly what?
Violent.
Oh, violent.
Even, I would call even some of it hellish.
so I come in and out of that realm of dreams and media and movies and, you know, our kind of collective dreams. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what, if any, attitudes or responsibility bodhisattvas might have with that sense of permeability of our collective dreams, particularly media and movies, and how we might respond to that skillfully. Particularly, I find myself getting very upset when I recognize I have no control over this, yet, you know, it affects my son, for instance, and it's becoming a sort of a norm, this increased dream of created reality through film and media. So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that sense of permeability and how we can respond to that.
I'd love to, but I probably only heard about half of what you said. So, Ruzan, repeat something about what she said.
I hope I get this. I hope I get this okay. What is the bodhisattva's role or responsibility when it comes to the permeability of dreams and of dreaming and not dreaming, and especially with how scary things like social media enter into it? How do we as bodhisattvas, how do we skillfully navigate that permeability?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? But that's the question. I don't think there's an easy answer to that question. We just pay attention. But we do need, you guys know this already, we do need to limit social media. It's a no-brainer. And when we limit social media, sometimes it will have a reverse effect, because without our social media, internal stuff comes up that we've been sort of avoiding because of our fixation on the social media. So just when you say, I say to my kid, I say to my grandkids, actually, I can't say that stuff to my kids anymore. I say to my grandkids, you cut down, and they say, well, if I cut down, I have bad images. And I said, well, that's just because those images are being held in because you're fixated on social media. But that's still not an answer, Deborah. There's no answer. The answer is try to be a bodhisattva with whatever happens. Try to be attentive, loving, and limit your intake of too much sensory stuff. What's happening now in the United States is so different than when I was a kid. So different. And I'm glad that so many more people are meditating, but I would rather have less social media and less meditation, frankly, because people get all wigged out all the time. But I don't know if I dealt with your question. I have a hearing impairment. But I thought Ruzan did a good job. Did he do an okay job?
He did a great job. I would just like to add, not so much social media, but movies in particular, and the levels of violence, which are a constructed dream of sorts that seem to turn back around and then can actually physically harm us. Are you saying just be okay and develop equanimity?
I'm saying also sometimes refrain from doing violent movies. You don't need to do violent movies. Now, if your grandson or your child wants to go to a violent movie and you're willing, go with them. But this stuff gets in us. It gets in us. So we're not abstinent from normal things, but these things are beyond normal, spending all the time on this. So that's and anyway, now time is up. Time is up. So